Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the AAS YouTube channel, and this is part of the good stuff. This is the scientific editor series, and I'm very happy to have Greg Herczeg with us today. Hey, Greg.
Hey, Frank. Very happy to be here.
Well, thank you. On this September 9th, for me anyway, in Phoenix. I think it's September 10th where you are. And where are you?
In Peking University, at the Kavli Institute for Astronomy and Astrophysics.
Okay.
In China.
Yeah, very good. I'm curious, do you speak Chinese?
I do not speak Chinese. It's very embarrassing.
You like read it enough to get along, like in a restaurant or something?
So I can point at things, and I can get home in a taxi. But reading and writing, right? Like I would like to be conversational, but I'll probably always be illiterate.
Okay.
But I've been here 10 years now, and so every year it's just a little bit more embarrassing that I don't
did not know that.
Chinese.
Wow. Well, I wish you good luck over the next 10 years, and maybe you'll end up being fluent, and it'll be great.
Thanks. Yeah. Next year. I always say next year. But I decided Chinese comes before Python. And
some people would say those are close.
But I really do feel bad about it because our students all speak Chinese, and there's an element of respect I think that I'm missing by not speaking the local language. And so I wish that I did. It's hard to do both science and learn a language at the same time. Learning a language fries my brain. But one of these years, I really need to just plow through it.
Very cool. Where are you native to?
Come from the U.S.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Born and raised in Chicago.
Chicago.
Outside Chicago. Yeah.
Yeah. Where?
Little place called Highland Park. It's Sure. North Shore, kind of 20 minutes north of Northwestern.
Yep. I spent about a decade in Chicagoland, so
excellent.
I'm familiar with bouncing around Chicagoland, so very good.
Kind of standard suburbia U.S.
Yes, Midwest flavor. Yeah, indeed. Very cool. So, Greg, what do you like to do for research?
Yeah, so I study how stars and planets form as an observer.
Okay.
And so, the past decade has been kind of amazing with ALMA, JADO-STs coming online. I started out as an ultraviolet astronomer, and I've kind of gradually moved around the spectrum. And so I enjoy, I guess accretion through the disk and onto the star, processes related to accretion. And then I remember when I first saw, there was an HL Tau image that ALMA took about 5-6 years ago. And when I first saw it, I thought, this is amazing. Like, how did an artist come up with this drawing? Like, it's such an amazing thing to draw. It looks, it looks
realistic.
Like
it's amazing.
Yeah. And it took my brain maybe an hour or two to actually understand that this was not an artist's conception, that was actually an ALMA image of a disk. And it was just amazing. And, for 30 years since Weidenschilling 77, people had wondered about, grains drifting and, why do disks exist when grains should drift pretty quickly? And with one look at that image, it solves this 30-year-old problem where, of course, there are these radial dust traps. You have pressure gradients in disk, so the grains don't travel all the way in. And so, more of my time has been spent in the submillimeter the past few years.
Cool.
A little bit ALMA, started looking for variability in the submillimeter with the JCMT. And so that's been fun, and a lot of things like that. It's a fun time to be an astronomer, as you know. And
there it is. And it is.
yep.
So I'm always kind of curious how people get into the fields they do, because there's 1,001 things one could do in astronomy writ large. And so, how did you happen to get into the star and planet formation game?
Oh, I mean, I'd start earlier than that, just because I want to give a shout out to, teachers and other important people throughout my life.
Please do.
I mean, the first reason why I'm here is my parents.
Okay.
Right? My parents were fantastic. They're the best parents I could have possibly had, and they valued education, and they put their lives into my siblings and me. And then teachers in school. My parents moved to a school district that had good schooling. And so we had teachers who were just unbelievable and put their heart and souls into us. And throughout my life, through today, I've had just amazing advisors, mentors, people who may not even know that they're being mentors. My PhD, had a great advisor, but then I had several other people who helped out a lot. My postdoc advisors were, wonderful people and amazing scientists.
Cool.
And so that's why I'm here. Why am I studying star and planet formation? Probably pretty random.
Okay.
And that, I was in undergraduate and I did one of these summer RU programs.
Oh yeah.
I did a couple of them. One of them didn't take. It was kind of in a lab in physics with cosmic ray stuff, and I should not be in a lab, and it just wasn't right.
No, I can relate.
Yeah. I should not be tinkering with anything. Any physical things.
I always ended up with extra parts. It didn't matter what it was. I would just end up with these extra parts, and I learned pretty quickly I'm not very good at that.
And so, I went to University of Notre Dame. Had an undergraduate advisor there, Grant Matthews, who was great. And then,
okay.
And then I did a summer RU program with Steve Sarr. And that was working on flares from IPEG, which is, 20 years later or more, it's still, be great to publish. But so it goes with these undergrad projects.
Cool.
But it was a lot of fun. I loved playing with the data. I was interested. That got me interested into stars. I was pretty open as to what I studied. At the time, Notre Dame did not have an astronomy program, so I got the intro class, but not much else. It was much more physics. And so anything astronomy, I was happy with. And then I went to Colorado for my PhD, and Steve Sarr's advisor was Jeff Linsky. And so Steve said, you might want to talk to Jeff, whether he has a project. At the time, STIS on board the HST on Hubble was a new instrument. And Jeff had just gotten a lot of data. And so it was kind of a fun data set for me to sink my teeth into.
Cool.
And the data set happened to be on a young star, TW Hydra, which is now one of the most famous young stars.
Yes.
And it was beautiful data. It was doing interesting things. And so that just kind of set me on the path to studying star and planet formation. And, I've moved around because we've been able to do a lot with Hubble Space Telescope and the ultraviolet. But a lot of problems for protoplanetary disks are long wavelength problems. And a lot of young stars are, if you want to understand how stars are growing, they're deep in molecular clouds and not detectable in the optical, much less the UV. So that's pushed me around in different wavelength ranges. And so I'd say I love, I love trying to understand how stars and planets form. And then I love the data. I love sinking my teeth into a data set. And so I feel like I could have been anything that had rich data sets.
Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. So as you went on, at some point, you probably published your first AAS Journal article, AJ, APJ. So what was that?
I did that. So that was 2002, and it was the first chapter of my thesis, working on molecular hydrogen emission in the ultraviolet from TW Hydra. Okay. Molecular hydrogen is notoriously difficult to detect directly, even though 99% of the disk is H2. Yeah. But the transitions are very weak. But in the ultraviolet, they have strong electronic transitions. Those upper levels can't be populated thermally, but there are a lot of transitions that are coincident with Lyman alpha. Lyman alpha is this whopping broad line. And so it radiatively excites the H2 to an upper level, and then we see fluorescence back to the ground state. And so my first paper was trying to understand that. And then that led to a PhD of doing a little bit of modeling with help from Brian Wood. And then, along with Jeff Linsky and Brian, Christian Kroll and Jeff Valenti were just amazing people to work with during my PhD, getting a bit of a larger sample size, not too large, and just trying to understand that emission and other interesting and weird features in that you can study in accretion and outflows from an accreting young star.
Awesome.
And I think it was a good experience. The second paper the first referee report I had was pretty straightforward.
Okay.
I think the second one was more of a struggle, and that was great. The referee pushed on some things and kept pushing on things, and I think it forced me, in part to improve clarity, in part to improve, some of the nuts and bolts of what I was doing. And so that hard referee report. And I think we've all had many over the years, but it was very beneficial in my own development, and hopefully other people's as well.
Cool. And we'll come back to this topic when we get into your role. So time went on, and so you published one paper, two paper, and we'll put some links in the description below the video to those first papers.
God.
Oh yeah.
I actually, so I hate looking at my old papers, and I'm sure that if I was, with time, it's not just that we become better at analyzing data, getting more expertise, but we also become much better writers.
Yes.
And I have not seen those papers in many, many years, and I think I would be horrified at my own writing.
Well, you'll maybe see all of a sudden a citation bump once they're in there and people go, ooh, look at these. And you'll go, oh, okay, not so bad. So time went on and you published a couple of papers, and at some point you became a scientific editor for the AAS Journals, APJ, AJ, PSJ, but that came much later. So why did you decide to become a scientific editor? And when?
Yeah, and I'm still new at the job. I've been a science editor for a little over a year and a half now.
Cool.
And so I'm still learning new things, encountering new situations and unexpected issues. I assume that it takes time, but it's been great. And being a science editor was something that I'd always sort of had in the back of my mind of something that I wanted to do. I guess I'm a true believer in the scientific process. Our lives are built on, fundamental scientific research that then gets adapted by engineers and then lets us talk from Arizona to China with no delay.
Connection's pretty good.
Lets us both be vaccinated, I assume.
Absolutely.
Hurricane Ida came through a week or so ago, and it was amazing that when it was still kind of this disorganized tropical depression, the modelers said, this is going to be a powerful storm that's going to hit the New Orleans area in 3 days. And, if they don't do that and people there get 1 day notice, then it was already destructive, but it becomes a much more destructive event.
Right.
Many, many more lives lost. And so, I think science affects us all the time, every day. It's why we live good lives right now. And so I'm a true believer in the process. And part of that process, I think, is ensuring high quality of science that people publish. And we've also seen breakdowns in this, in part scientific communication has broken down in the US for some people, where we now have people taking horse dewormers and things like that. But there's also been some breakdowns in publishing where you get these weird papers that come out. I remember there was a paper last year linking COVID transmission to eating cabbage and elevation and things like that. So some things are easy for us to ignore, but some things are more difficult. The ivermectin, there are studies out there that say that it's positive because of various biases that you have in publishing. And so, I believe in the scientific process, and I felt like being an editor is an important contribution to our little field in astronomy, which is an important contribution to broader science. And so I'm really grateful that I can play this small role in the process of ensuring that papers that come out are reasonable and
quality.
And and we're only one small part of the peer review process. I think we'll get to that.
We're going to get
we are not the only step. Papers get evaluated by their peers after they're reviewed. So just because it's refereed does not mean it's correct. But there is some standard that it provides to the field.
New results. Significant new results.
So then this was always something that I wanted to do. And I kept having papers get sent to editors who were pretty far outside of star and planet formation. So Judy Pfeiffer is amazing, but she's only one person and she couldn't handle everything. And so I would get papers that were, Fabian Walter would be the lead editor on, or the science editor on, multiple times. Just like, AppJ really needs an additional person in this field. And then Louis Ho, who is my boss, he's the director of my institute, and he's also a deputy editor. He mentioned the same thing to me. And so I contacted Judy as well, because I'd had great interactions with Judy, both as an author and as a referee. I felt like the referee reports that came from her were always excellent. And of course, that's on the referees. The referee does a great job, but she was clearly an important person in this process. And so I contacted them, and then Ethan one day contacted me, and
Very cool.
I got hired quickly after.
Very cool. Well, I wish you a long, robust career as a scientific editor for the journals. So for people who don't know, sort of on a day-to-day basis, what does a scientific editor do on sort of everyday flow? If you do it every day, some people have, different schedules, but just on a, what does the daily activities encompass?
Yeah, I do it every day, morning and night, and often in the middle as well. I'll be checking emails, seeing if things come in. And my time is spent probably equally between looking over papers, looking over referee reports, and sometimes those are skins, sometimes those require deeper understanding of the content of the report.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll need to edit a little bit. And then finding appropriate referees for papers, which sometimes can be very quick and sometimes will take a lot of time.
Yes. I think my personal record is about 18. I had to go through about 18 referees before I found the right one.
I've gotten up to 11.
Yeah.
And then I've gotten out to 3 weeks without finding one. And, we like getting papers back within a month.
Really? But sometimes it takes and it can be even just global stuff like it's summertime in one half of the hemisphere, and so it can be harder to find people during summers in one hemisphere versus the other or something like that. So that
vacation time,
vacation times, COVID didn't help. So yeah.
And then every once in a while a referee will get sick or otherwise be unable, and that always feels terrible. I've had, I think, a couple of times where the family member of the referee, it's like the referee is, they're in the hospital, it's very serious, but they wanted to make sure that you knew that they're not going to be able to referee this paper.
Great.
And I mean, on the one hand, I feel, I guess I appreciate the dedication to the process, that all of us feel like being a referee is important, and that even though they're very sick, they let us know. So I feel like, maybe their priorities should be elsewhere, but it really helps the process also.
Dedication, that's dedication.
And
yeah. I had one case recently where the referee actually passed mid-process, and it was the referee's daughter who ended up reaching out and contacting me because I sent a couple emails and what's going on, and so she obviously had access to email account, and I was like, oh boy, yeah. So it does happen. So on a weekly basis, roughly how many new manuscripts do you handle on a weekly basis?
I think I average about 3.5 or 4.
Okay, yeah. So in steady state, because there's all the different phases of it, steady state, you probably got 50, 60 in the pipe at any given time.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, the border. Okay.
It's work, but it's manageable.
Yeah. So like you get 3 a week, and so those new manuscripts come in and you give them an initial read. And so what do you think makes for a good, solid initial submission to the journals?
Yeah, I think clarity in language and logic. And I think sometimes a paper can get a bad referee report, or I shouldn't say bad, a negative referee report, because the logic in the paper wasn't clear. And so the referee had to spend all their time just trying to understand what the authors were doing. And referees are people. And if they get frustrated trying to understand what's going on, they're going to be more likely to not just judge the structure and the logic poorly, but maybe they'll also then judge the science more poorly than what it would otherwise be evaluated.
Right.
And so for initial submission, I think clarity in describing what you did and how you did it is, and that's different. I watched a couple of these, and everybody said abstract, and that the abstract was important. And I think the abstract is very important at the end state to get people's attention. And you want people to read your paper, cite your paper, appreciate the science that you're doing, although all the hard work that's went into the guts of the paper. You want your coworkers, your colleagues to appreciate all that. And that may not happen without a good abstract. But for initial submission, I want clarity.
Okay, good. Yes, it's almost 90% of it on reports is clarity of something. Sounded good when you wrote it. Sounded even your co-author, that sounds pretty good. That sounds great. Well, because they're on the inside game. But if somebody outside reads it and you go, yeah, what?
I mean, it all makes sense to me in my head. I don't know why you can't.
I don't know why everybody else can't understand it. Read my mind. Okay, so we get the paper, and then so we begin the peer review process. And so do you have any tips for authors with regard to the peer review process? Maybe, how to handle a referee report, just how should authors engage?
Yeah, first I would say that the referee report is never personal. And I'm sure that there are exceptions to that, but I think those are very rare, and I have not seen a case so far in my time. But the author probably put a lot of sweat and tears into this. It might be a year or two of their life, even more. And so then reading criticism of that can be very hard to take. And so I recommend to my students that when they get a referee report, take a read through it, and then put it off to the side for a day, maybe more than that, until you're no longer angry. And I think once you get past that initial disappointment with,
it's natural.
Maybe it's, I think most of the time, the referee reports are reasonable. And this is maybe 80%, right? There are those 20% where there are serious substantive differences between the referee and author. And so those are maybe different cases, but even so, it's not personal. And if they can put the report off to the side and then come back to it after having those criticisms just bounce around in their brain for a little bit, I think usually people see that, actually the referee is probably right here. The referee missed this point that was in the paper, but maybe not very clear.
Right.
And so responding to the referee report should take care of at least some scientific issues, but then some clarity issues as well. And, in most cases, you can get past that with the referee. Sometimes it has to move to a second or even third referee, and those can be more challenging both for the referee and for the author, but it's not personal. And hopefully, I think all of us have had rough referee reports, And hopefully we can see it as a step in our development.
There you go.
Especially when we're younger. When we're older, I guess there's not much development left, and we just
Well,
yell at the clouds or something.
I don't know about that, but yes. Okay, let's go on the flip side. Do you have any tips for referees in the process, right? What makes for a good report, for example?
Yeah. And I used to be, I don't know if you've had any of these people, but I used to be an annoying person where after I did 3 or 4 referee reports, and then at some point I realized I have no idea what I'm supposed to be doing. I don't know what the standards are here. And so there was a string of like 5 or 6 times where I agreed to referee the paper, but I wanted more guidance from the editor as to what I should be doing.
Okay.
And unfortunately, these were now in an old email account that I was using Pine. And so the first 10 years of my career are no longer available.
Oh, I bet you could still find Pine. I bet you could still find Pine. And probably
I could find Pine. I don't think I could find my emails.
Oh, no, those may be gone. But
those are gone, yeah.
Pine.
But I remember one response from MinRAS, David Flower, and
yes,
he told me that the most important thing to look for in the paper is clarity. And at the time, I'm a young postdoc. I think, science needs to be right. Everything, I need to go through everything in detail. Like, how can it be that clarity is more important than making sure every little thing is correct?
Mm-hmm.
And with time, I've realized that he was actually correct, and that's probably the most important aspect of a paper. And that if a paper has a different perspective than I do, that's fine.
Okay.
If there are methods that I don't necessarily agree with in the paper, maybe that's okay, as long as those methods are clear to the reader. And then if everything about the paper is clear, then it can be accepted and it can get out to the rest of the subfield. And then it's up to everybody else to evaluate that paper. And some papers end up being not very impactful. Maybe because there was something a little bit wrong with the paper that the rest of the subfield saw that the referee didn't. And as long as there's clarity, that's fine. If there's not clarity, it can be really hard for the subfield to judge what's going on in the paper. That said, I still want referees judging the science too, right? And so when I referee, I try to figure out what the most important conclusions of the paper are. And then I try to trace that logic back to the evidence that justifies those conclusions. And so what are those logical steps? And I try to see whether those logical steps make sense. And I'm a skeptic, and I try to be skeptical of those. I do think that the referee process is an adversarial process where I want referees to be skeptical and to try to figure out why this paper might be wrong. And so when I'm a referee, I expect that the authors will come back and say, the referee is wrong because of this, and we've clarified it in the paper. And so that's fine. I expect to be wrong as a referee, but I try to be skeptical, and so I want to see that out of referees, and then catching just kind of silly, embarrassing things that the authors may not have noticed, right?
Bad reference, typos, this kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Very cool. Good. Is there anything else about the peer review process that you'd like to share with everyone?
I think recommending reviewers is very helpful. Even if we don't use those reviewers, they give us a line into
Right.
other reviewers with similar expertise.
Right.
And this is especially useful when a paper comes across our desk that is maybe not my core expertise. Right. So there are some subfields where I know all the people and personalities, but when we get away from that, it can be a little bit harder to find a referee.
Yep.
And I also appreciate tips on younger referees. I know the senior people in the field, they'd be great referees, yes, but they're doing a million other things, and we probably use them a lot. Whereas that senior PhD student or young postdoc, I don't know them, and I want to be using them as referees.
Right.
It's good for their development.
Yes.
It's good for spreading the burden out to other people. I think all of us are extremely thankful for all the time that the referees put into the process. It is
valuable. Yep. Yeah. And just to loop back on what you said, right? Yeah, we really don't have any formal training on how to be a good referee. We have some material out these days. We have one video on that actually out. Put a link to that below the description. But
that it might be good to link that video.
Okay. Yeah. I'll put a link in the description below the video. How to be a good referee. And so it's sort of trial by fire, right? And you said your first ones were okay. It's not the report I would write today. And so
I'm sorry to all those authors who got those early.
Zip. Yes. And in fact, I will still occasionally referee a paper. I don't do it for the AAS Journals because that would be a little too weird. But I do have it for other journals. And just to give a shout out, Steve Shore once told me that it'd be good for my soul if I refereed a paper because I'd been an editor, and it's like, okay, Steve. So I did. So Steve will ask once in a while, and I'll do a referee report for him. So, but it's also good. At that point, you've learned some stuff, not just how to be a referee, but you've been on the editorial side, and okay, what makes for a good report? And it's a chance to put what you're saying into action, and maybe what you're saying might need some adjustment, maybe it doesn't, but action, put your words into action, so to speak. So cool.
And then the other I think really nice thing about editor is how smooth all the processes are. And so all of us can focus on the science, finding referees, evaluating referee reports, looking at the papers, reading them. And so, Janice and Alex just do a tremendous job at keeping everything going. The past few years, I think Greg and Gus have been added to the data team, and that's useful, especially for me. Like, I don't really understand how tables end up on Vizier and however else, but obviously getting data out there so that other people can use it is one of the core things of a paper, right? We love our discussion sections where we just speculate about everything, but then the core of the paper is all the data that then other people end up using. And so they manage to make sure that all the data tables look good and are readable, everything else. And so I think they play a critical role.
They do. It's a value add, right?
Yep.
Your paper better.
Yeah, and in the field better. You know, when I talk to people who are scientists who are not astronomers, we have fantastic data access policies in the community. Our archives are amazing.
Data image.
Getting, you know, all in papers, hopefully the data is easily accessible. And so that leads to far better results than what we get otherwise with data policies that other scientific fields have.
Nice.
And then having
in the field,
you know, we're biased to AAS Journals, but I think we have a nice set of really high quality journals in astronomy, where we're judging papers based on scientific quality, and you know, it doesn't have to be as high impact as Cell or something like that, where authors don't have to think too hard about impact factor. They can just submit it, and then they put the paper on AstroPH at some point in the process. We're becoming open access, so you know, soon all of the papers are just immediately accessible and not behind any expensive firewalls, which
that's a good thing.
Academia, you know, so many people hate academia because we write papers that then are behind expensive firewalls that nobody can read, and we don't have that. It's great.
Yeah, I'm very happy about that development. I'm a big proponent of open source softwares, open data, open science. The way it should be. Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
And then, you know, stats are, I feel like 10 or 15 years ago, stats were a little bit easier, and it's just getting more and more complicated, where we'll now get papers where, you know, on machine learning, AI, things that are really beyond what I can judge, whether these programs are being implemented in a way that will give reliable results. And I think that's an issue that all of us are struggling with, where, you know, sometimes I'll ask some non-astronomer statistician to give a report, but then we also have Eric Feigelson, who can also do that. And you know, if he doesn't know a topic, he knows the people that knows the topic. And so I think that can be very helpful as well in evaluating the more complicated techniques, and as data sets get bigger and bigger,
and
machine learning
involved, right? I mean, yeah, 15 years ago, you know, we were basically doing very simple type of statistics, and it's gotten way more sophisticated within the past decade, which is a good thing. But it is more sophisticated, so it's not just add them all up and divide. It's a little more complicated than that these days. It's good. It's good. Very cool. Greg, I want to thank you so much for spending some time and talking about your science and your scientific editor duties.
Well, thanks for having me. I enjoyed it.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. And I hope this made your astronomy day just a little bit better, and we'll see you on the next one. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.